next two chapters of Chronicles of Narnia. We left off at chapter 5, Deplorable Word. Deplorable Word, not world. This is the art. Little recap. Diggory went and found Polly. They figured out how to actually use the rings properly. They went to the original pool to figure out if they could still go through it. They did. They went back to the wood between the worlds. They marked that pool so that they don't lose it, and then they went into a random pool. The new world that they got into, there was nobody there. There was no sounds. There's no bugs, no birds, no nothing. It was just them. And they kind of wandered through this big old castle that was kind of like a maze. They found a room that had a bunch of wax statues, frozen stiff type statues. And then in the middle there was a bell that had a poem with it. Make your choice, adventure stranger, strike the bell and bide the danger, or wonder till it drives you mad what would have followed if you had. Polly did not want to ring the bell. Polly wanted to that place was giving her the heebie-jeebies. And Diggory was like, well, I don't want to go crazy, so I'm gonna ring the bell. And he did. And it rang, and it got louder and louder and louder and louder and louder. And it wasn't it echoed or anything, it just got louder. And then it stopped. And that's where we are. The children were facing one another across the pillar where the bell hung, still trembling, though it no longer gave out any note. Suddenly, they heard a soft noise from the end of the room, which was still undamaged. They turned as quick as lightning to see what it was. One of the robed figures, the furthest off one of all, the woman whom Diggory thought so beautiful, was rising from its chair. When she stood up, they realized she was even taller than they had thought, and you could see at once, not only from her crown and robes, but from the flash in her eyes and the curve of her lips, that she was a great queen. She looked around the room and saw the damage and saw the children, but you could not guess from her face what she thought of either, or whether she was surprised. She came forward with long, swift strides. "Who has awakened me? Who has broken the spell?" she asked. "I think it must have been me," said Diggory. "You," said the queen, laying her hand on his shoulder, a white, beautiful hand. But Diggory could feel that it was strong as steel pincers. "You? But you are only a child, a common child. Anyone can see at a glance that you have no drop of royal or noble blood in your veins. How did such as you dare to enter this house?" "We've come from another world, by magic," said Polly, who thought it was high time the queen took some notice of her as well as of Diggory. "Is this true?" said the queen, looking at Diggory and not giving Polly even a glance. "Yes, it is," said he. The queen put her other hand under his chin and forced it up so that she could see his face better. Sorry, I might have to adjust the camera. It works. Diggory tried to stare back, but he soon had to let his eyes drop. There was something about hers that overpowered him. After she had studied him for well over a minute, she let go of his chin and said, "You are no magician. The mark of it is not on you. You must be only the servant of a magician. It is on another's magic that you have traveled here." "It was my Uncle Andrew," said Diggory. At that moment, not in the room itself, but from somewhere very close, there came first a rumbling, then a creaking, and then a roar of falling masonry, and the floor shook. "There is great peril here," said the queen. "The whole palace is breaking up. If we are not out of it in a few minutes, we shall be buried under the ruin." She spoke as calmly as if she had been mentioning the time of day. "Come," she added. She held out a hand to each of the children. Polly, who was disliking the queen and feeling rather sulky, would not have let her hand be taken if she could have helped it. But though the queen spoke so calmly, her movements were as quick as thought. Before Polly knew what was happening, her left hand had been caught in a hand much larger and stronger than her own, that she could do nothing about it. "This is a terrible woman," thought Polly. She's strong enough to break my arm with one twist. And now that she's got my left hand, I can't get my yellow ring. If I tried to stretch across and get my right hand into my left pocket, I mightn't be able to reach it before she asked me what I was doing. Whatever happens, we mustn't let her know about the rings. I do hope Diggory has the sense to keep his mouth shut. I wish I could get a word with him alone. Sorry, Buster's being weird. The queen led them out of the Hall of Images into a long corridor and then through a whole maze of halls and stairs and courtyards. Again and again they heard parts of the great palace collapsing, sometimes quite close to them. Once a huge arch came thundering down only a moment after they had passed through it. The queen was walking quickly. The children had to trot to keep up with her, but she showed no sign of fear. Diggory thought, she's wonderfully brave and strong. She's what I call a queen. I do hope she's going to tell us the story of this place. She did tell them certain things as they went along. That is the door to the dungeons, she would say, or that passage leads to the principal torture chambers, or this was the old banqueting hall where my great-grandfather bade 700 nobles to a feast and killed them all before they had drunk their fill. They had rebellious thoughts. They came at last into a hall larger and loftier than any they had yet seen. From its size and from its great doors at the far end, Diggory thought that now at last they must be coming to the main entrance. In this he was quite right. The doors were dead black, either ebony or some black metal that is not found in our world. They were fastened with great bars, most of them too tight to reach and all too heavy to lift. He wondered how they would get out. The queen let go of his hand and raised her arm. She drew herself up to her full height and stood rigid. Then she said something which they couldn't understand, but it sounded horrid, and made an action as if she were throwing something toward the door, and those high and heavy doors trembled for a second, as if they were made of silk, and then crumbled away till there was nothing left of them but a heap of dust on the threshold. "Whew," whistled Diggory. "Has your master magician, your uncle, power like mine?" asked the queen, firmly seizing Diggory's hand again. "But I shall know later. In the meantime, remember what you have seen. This is what happens to things and to people who stand in my way." Scary. Much more light than they had yet seen in that country was pouring in through the now empty doorway, and when the queen led them out through it, they were not surprised to find themselves in the open air. The wind that blew in their faces was cold, yet somehow stale. They were looking from a high terrace, and there was a great landscape out below them. Low down and near the horizon hung a great red sun, far bigger than our sun. Diggory felt at once that it was also colder than ours, a sun near the end of its life, weary of looking down upon that world. To the left of the sun and higher up there was a single star, big and bright. They were the only two things to be seen in the dark sky. They made a dismal group, and on the earth in every direction, as far as the eye could reach, there spread a vast city of which there was no living thing to be seen. And all the temples, towers, palaces, pyramids, and bridges cast long, disastrous-looking shadows in the light of that withered sun. Once a great river had flowed through the city, but the water had long since vanished, and there was now only a wide ditch of gray dust. My dog's making noises. Sorry. "Look well on that which no eyes will ever see again," said the queen. "Such was Charn, the great city, the city of the King of Kings, the wonder of the world, perhaps of all worlds. Does your uncle rule any city as great as this, boy?" "No," said Diggory. He was going to explain that Uncle Andrew didn't rule any cities, but the queen went on. "It is silent now, but I have stood here when the whole air was full of the noises of Charn, the trampling feet, the creaking of wheels, the cracking of the whips, and the groaning of slaves, the thunder of chariots, and the sacrificial drums beating in the temples. I have stood here, but that was near the end, when the roar of battle went up from every street, and the river of Charn ran red." She paused and added, "All in one moment, one woman blotted it out forever." "Who?" said Diggory in a faint voice, but he had already guessed the answer. "Aye," said the queen. "Aye, Jadis, the last queen, but the queen of the world." The two children stood silent, shivering in the cold wind. "It was my sister's fault," said the queen. "She drove me to it. May the curse of all the powers rest upon her forever. At any moment I was ready to make peace, yes, and to spare her life too, if only she would yield me the throne. But she would not. Her pride had destroyed the whole world. Even after the war had begun, there was a solemn promise that neither side would use magic. But when she broke her promise, what could I do? Fool! As if she did not know that I had more magic than she. She even knew that I had the secret of the deplorable word. Did she think, she was always a weakling, that I would not use it?" "What was it?" said Diggory. "That was the secret of secrets," said the Queen Jadis. "It had long been known to the great kings of our race that there was a word which, if spoken with the proper ceremonies, would destroy all living... What was it?" said Diggory. "That was the secret of secrets," said the Queen Jadis. "It had long been known to the great kings of our race that there was a word which, if spoken with the proper ceremonies, would destroy all living things except the one who spoke it. But the ancient kings were weak and soft-hearted, and bound themselves and all who should come after them with great oaths, never even to seek after the knowledge of that word. But I learned it in a secret place, and paid a terrible price to learn it. I did not use it until she forced me to it. I fought to overcome her by every other means. I poured out the blood of my armies like water." "Beast," muttered Polly. "The last great battle," said the queen, "raged for 3 days here in Charn itself. For 3 days I looked upon it from this very spot. I did not use my power till the last of my soldiers had fallen, and the accursed woman, my sister, at the head of her rebels, was halfway up those great stairs that led up from the city to the terrace. Then I waited, till we were so close that we could see one another's faces. She flashed her horrible wicked eyes upon me and said, 'Victory.' 'Yes,' said I, 'victory, but not yours.' Then I spoke the deplorable word. A moment later I was the only living thing beneath the sun." "But the people," gasped Diggory. "What people, boy?" "All the ordinary people," said Polly, "who never done you any harm, and the women and the children and the animals." "Don't you understand?" said the queen, still speaking to Diggory. "I was the queen. They were all my people. What else were they there for but to do my will?" "It was rather hard luck on them all the same," said he. "I had forgotten that you were only a common boy. How should you understand the reasons of state? You must learn, child, that what would be wrong for you or any of the common people is not wrong in a great queen such as I. The weight of the world is on our shoulders. We must be freed from all rules. Ours is a high and lonely destiny." Diggory suddenly remembered that Uncle Andrew had used exactly the same words, but they sounded much grander when Queen Jadis said them. Perhaps because Uncle Andrew was not 7 feet tall and dazzlingly beautiful. "And what did you do then?" said Diggory. "I had already cast strong spells on the hall where the images of the ancestors sit, and the force of those spells was that I should sleep among them, like an image myself, and need neither food nor fire, though it were 1,000 years till one came and struck the bell and awoke me." Was it the deplorable word that made the sun like that?" asked Diggory. "Like what?" said Jadis. "So big, so red, and so cold." "It has always been so," said Jadis, "at least for hundreds of thousands of years. Have you a different sort of sun in your world?" "Yes, it's smaller and yellower, and it gives a good deal more heat." The queen gave a long-drawn "ah," and Diggory saw on her face that same hungry and greedy look which he had seen on Uncle Andrew's. "So," she paused, "yours is a younger world." She paused for a moment to look more at the deserted city, and if she was sorry for all the evil she had done there, she certainly didn't show it, and then said, "Now, let us be going. It is cold here at the end of all the ages." "Going where?" asked both children. "Where?" repeated Jadis in surprise. "To your world, of course." Polly and Diggory looked at each other aghast. Polly had disliked the queen from the first, and even Diggory, now that he had heard the story, felt that he had seen quite as much of her as he wanted. Certainly, she was not at all the sort of person one would like to take home, and if they didn't know how they could. What they wanted was to get away themselves, but Polly couldn't get out a ring, and of course Diggory couldn't go without her. Diggory got very red in the face and stammered, Oh, our world? I didn't know you wanted to go there. What else were you sent here for if not to fetch me? Asked Jadis. I'm sure you wouldn't like our world at all, said Diggory. It's not her sort of place, is it, Polly? It's very dull, not worth seeing, really. It will soon be worth seeing when I rule it, answered the queen. Oh, but you can't, said Diggory. It's not like that. They wouldn't let you, you know. The queen gave a contemptuous smile. Many great kings, she said, thought they could stand against the house of Charn, but they all fell, and their very names are forgotten, foolish boy. Do you think that I, with my beauty and my magic, will not have your whole world at my feet before a year has passed? Prepare your incantations and take me there at once. This is perfectly frightful, said Diggory to Polly. Perhaps you fear for this uncle of yours, said Jadis. But if he honors me duly, he shall keep his life and his throne. I am not coming to fight against him. He must be a very great magician if he has found how to send you here. Is he king of your whole world or only of part? He isn't king of anywhere, said Diggory. You are lying, said the queen. Does not magic always go with the royal blood? Whoever heard of common people being magicians? I can see the truth whether you speak it or not. Your uncle is the great king and the great enchanter of your world, and by his art he has seen the shadow of my face, and in some magic mirror, some enchanted pool, and for the love of my beauty he has made a potent spell, which shook your world to its foundations and sent you across the vast gulf between world and world to ask my favor and to bring me to him. Answer me, is that not how it was? Well, not exactly, said Diggory. Not exactly, shouted Polly. Why, it's absolutely bosh from beginning to end. Minions, cried the queen, turning in rage upon Polly and seizing her hair at the very top of her head where it hurts most. But in doing so, she let go of both children's hands. Now, shouted Diggory, and quick, shouted Polly. They plunged their left hands into their pockets and did not even need to put the rings on. The moment they touched them, the whole of their dreary world vanished from their eyes. They were rushing upward, and a warm green light was growing nearer overhead. I love that chapter. Chapter 6, the beginning of Uncle Andrew's troubles. Dart. Hang on. My makeshift camera's dying. Let me plug it in. I have not read this chapter 6 yet. I've only ever gotten to chapter 5 before I'd have to restart for whatever reason. Let go, screamed Polly. I'm not touching you, said Diggory. Then their heads came out of the pool, and once more the sunny quietness of the wood between worlds was all about them, and it seemed richer and warmer and even more peaceful than ever after the staleness and ruin of the place they had just left. To think that if they had been given the chance, they would again have forgotten who they were and where they came from. And they would have laid down and enjoyed themselves, half asleep, listening to the growing of the trees. But this time, there was something that kept them as wide awake as possible. For as soon as they had got out of the grass, they found that they were not alone. The queen, or the witch, whatever you like to call her, had come up with them, holding on fast by Polly's hair. That was why Polly had been shouting, "Let go." This proved, by the way, another thing about the rings, which Uncle Andrew hadn't told Diggory because he didn't know it himself. In order to jump from world to world by one of those rings, you don't need to be wearing or touching it yourself. It is enough if you are touching someone who is touching it. And in that way they work like a magnet. And everyone knows that if you pick up a pin with a magnet, any other pin which is touching that first pin will come too. Now that you saw her in the wood, Queen Jadis looked different. She was much paler than she had been, so pale that hardly any of her beauty was left. And she stooped and seemed to be finding it hard to breathe, as if the air of that place stifled her. Neither of the children felt in the least afraid of her now. Let go of my hair, said Polly. What do you mean by it? Here, let go of her hair at once, said Diggory. They both turned and struggled with her. They were stronger than she, and in a few they had forced her to let go. She reeled back, panting, and there was a look of terror in her eyes. Quick, Diggory, said Polly. Change rings and enter the home pool. Help, help, mercy, cried the witch in a faint voice, staggering after them. Take me with you. You cannot mean to leave me in this horrible place. It is killing me. It is a reason of state, said Polly spitefully. Like when you killed all those people in your own world. Do be quick, Diggory. They had put on their green rings, but Diggory said, Oh, bother, what are we to do? He couldn't help feeling a little sorry for the queen. Buster, I cannot play with you right now. Go over there. Are you okay? Okay. This is my life with my dog. I accidentally tossed it into a laundry hamper and now he can't get it out. But he'll figure it out. He's very smart sometimes. Oh, don't be such an ass, said Polly. 10 to 1, she's only shamming. Do come on. And then both children plunged into the home pool. It's a good thing we made that mark, thought Polly. But as they jumped, Diggory felt that a large cold finger and thumb had caught him by the ear. And as they sank down and the confused shapes of our own world began to appear, the grip of that finger and thumb grew stronger. The witch was apparently recovering her strength. Diggory struggled and kicked, but it was not of the least use. In a moment they found themselves in Uncle Andrew's study. And there was Uncle Andrew himself, staring at the wonderful creature that Diggory had brought back from beyond the world. And well, he might stare. Diggory and Polly stared too. There was no doubt that the witch had got over her faintness, and now that one saw her in our own world, with ordinary things around her, she fairly took one's breath away. In Charn, she had been alarming enough. In London, she was terrifying. For one thing, they had not realized till now how very big she was. Hardly human, was what Diggory thought when he looked at her. And he may have been right, for some say there's giantish blood in the royal family of Charn. But even her height was nothing compared with her beauty, her fierceness, and her wildness. She looked 10 times more alive than most of the people one meets in London. Uncle Andrew was bowing and rubbing his hands and looking, to tell the truth, extremely frightened. He seemed a little shrimp of a creature beside the witch, and yet, as Polly said afterwards, there was a sort of likeness between her face and his. Something in his expression. It was the look that all wicked magicians have, the mark, which Jadis had said she could not find in Diggory's face. One good thing about seeing the two together was that you would never again be afraid of Uncle Andrew any more. That you'd never again be afraid of Uncle Andrew any more than you would be afraid of a worm after you had met a rattlesnake, or afraid of a cow after you had met a mad bull. Pooh, thought Diggory to himself. Him, a magician, not much. Now she's the real thing. I can't help you, Buster. I am reading right now. He got it stuck in the blue basket, and he can't get it out. And he wants my help so bad. But I can't right now, because I am reading. He looks so sad. Uncle Andrew kept on rubbing his hands and bowing. He was trying to say something very polite, but his mouth had gone all dry so that he could not speak. His experiment, with the rings as he called it, was turning out more successful than he liked. For though he had dabbled in magic for years, he had also left all the dangers, as far as one can, to other people. Nothing at all like this had ever happened to him before. Then Jadis spoke, not very loud, but there was something in her voice that made the whole room quiver. "Where is the magician who has called me into this world?" Madam," gasped Uncle Andrew. "I am most honored, highly gratified, a most unexpected pleasure. If only I had the opportunity of making any preparations, I... "Where is the magician, fool?" said Jadis. I am, madam. I hope you will excuse any liberty these naughty children may have taken. I assure you there was no intention." "You," said the queen in a still more terrible voice. Then, in one stride, she crossed the room, seized a great handful of Uncle Andrew's gray hair, and pulled his head back so that his face looked up into hers. Then she studied his face, just as she had studied Diggory's face in the Palace of Charn. He blinked and licked his lips nervously all the time. At last she let him go, so suddenly that he reeled back against the wall. "I see," she said scornfully. "You are a magician, of a sort. Stand up, dog, and don't sprawl there as if you were speaking to your equals. How do you come to know magic? You are not of royal blood, or I swear." "Well, not perhaps in the strict sense," stammered Uncle Andrew. "Not exactly royal, ma'am. The Ketterleys are, however, a very old family. An old Dorsetshire family, ma'am." "Peace," said the witch. "I see what you are. You are a little peddling magician who works by rules and books. There is no real magic in your blood and heart. Your kind was made an end of in my world 1,000 years ago. But here I shall allow you to be my servant." "I should be most happy, delighted to be of any service. A pleasure, I assure you." "Peace. You talk far too much. Listen to your first task. I see we are in a large city. Procure for me at once a chariot, or a flying carpet, or a well-trained dragon, or whatever is usual for royal and noble persons in your land. Then bring me to places where I can get clothes and jewels and slaves fit for my rank. Tomorrow I will begin the conquest of the world." "I'll go place an order for a cab at once," gasped Uncle Andrew. "Stop," said the witch, just as he reached the door. "Do not dream of treachery. My eyes can see through walls and into the minds of men. They will be on you wherever you go. At the first sign of disobedience, I will lay such spells on you that anything you sit down on will feel like red-hot iron, and whenever you lie in a bed, there will be invisible blocks of ice at your feet. Now go." The old man went out, looking like a dog with its tail between its legs. The children were now afraid that Jadis would have something to say to them, about what had happened in the wood. As it turned out, however, she never mentioned it, either then or afterwards, I think. And Diggory thinks too that her mind was of a sort which cannot remember that quiet place at all. And however often you took her there, and however long you left her there, she would still know nothing about it. Now that she was left alone with the children, she took no notice of either of them, and that was like her too. In Charn, she had taken no notice of Polly till the very end, because Diggory was the one she wanted to make use of. Now that she had Uncle Andrew, she took no notice of Diggory. I expect most witches are like that. They are not interested in things or people unless they can use them. They are terribly practical. So there was silence in the room for a minute or two, but you could tell by the way Jadis tapped her foot on the floor that she was growing impatient. Presently she said, as if to herself, "What is the old fool doing? I should have brought a whip." She stalked out of the room in pursuit of Uncle Andrew without one glance at the children. "Whew," said Polly, letting out a long breath of relief. "And now I must get home. It's frightfully late. I shall catch it." "Well, do come back as soon as you can," said Diggory. "This is simply ghastly having her here. We must make some sort of plan." That's up to your uncle now," said Polly. "It was he who started all this messing about with magic. All the same, you will come back, won't you? Hang it all, you can't leave me alone in a scrape like this." "I shall go home by the tunnel," said Polly rather coldly. "That'll be the quickest way. And if you want me to come back, hadn't you better say you're sorry?" "Sorry?" exclaimed Diggory. "Well, now, isn't that like a girl? What have I done?" "Oh, nothing, of course," said Polly sarcastically. "Only nearly screwed my wrist off in that room with all the waxworks, like a cowardly bully. Only struck the bell with a hammer, like a silly idiot. Only turned back in the woods so that she had time to catch hold of you before we jumped into our own pool. That's all." "Oh," said Diggory, very surprised. "Well, all right. I'll say I'm sorry. And I really am sorry about what happened in the waxworks room. There, I've said I'm sorry. And now do be decent and come back. I shall be on a frightful hole if you don't." "Buster, what are you doing?" "I don't see what's going to happen to you. It's Mr. Kettley who's going to sit on red-hot chairs and have ice in his bed, isn't it?" "It isn't that sort of thing," said Diggory. "Well, I'm bothered about his mother. Suppose that creature went into her room. She might frighten her to death." "Oh, I see," said Polly in rather a different voice. "All right, we'll call it Pax. I'll come back if I can, but I must go now." And she crawled through that little door in the tunnel, in that dark place among the rafters, which had seemed so exciting and adventurous a few hours ago, seemed quite tame and homely now. We must now go back to Uncle Andrew. His poor old heart went pit-a-pat as he staggered down the attic stairs, and he kept on dabbing at his forehead with a handkerchief. When he reached his bedroom, which was the floor below, he locked himself in. The very first thing he did was to grope at his wardrobe for a bottle and a wine glass, which he always kept hidden there. Where Aunt Letty could not find them. He poured himself out a glass full of the nasty grown-up drink and drank it in one gulp. Then he drew a deep breath. "Upon my word," he said to himself, "I'm dreadfully shaken. Most upsetting. And at my time of life?" He poured out a second glass and drank it too. Then he began to change his clothes. You have never seen such clothes, but I can remember them. He put on a very high, skinny, stiff collar of the sort that made you hold your chin up all the time. He put on a white waistcoat with pattern on it and arranged his gold watch chain across the front. He put on his best frock coat, the one he kept for weddings and funerals. He got out his best tall hat and polished it up. There was a vase of flowers put there by Aunt Letty on his dressing table. He took one and put it in his buttonhole. He took a clean handkerchief, a lovely one such as you couldn't buy today, out of the little left-hand drawer and put a few drops of scent on it. He took his eyeglass with thick black ribbon and screwed it into his eye, and then he looked at himself in the mirror. Children have one kind of silliness, as you know, and grown-ups have another. At the moment, Uncle Andrew was beginning to be silly in a very grown-up way. Now that the witch was no longer in the same room with him, he was quickly forgetting how she had frightened him, and thinking more and more of her wonderful beauty. He kept on saying to himself, "A demn fine woman, sir. A demn fine woman. A superb creature." He had also somehow managed to forget that it was the children who had got a hold of this superb creature. He felt as if he himself, by his magic, had called her out of unknown worlds. "Andrew, my boy," he said to himself as he looked in the glass, "you're a devilish well-preserved fellow for your age. A distinguished-looking gentleman, sir." You see, the foolish old man was actually beginning to imagine the witch would fall in love with him. The 2 drinks probably had something to do with it, but so had his best clothes. But he was, in any case, as vain as a peacock, and that was why he had become a magician. He unlocked the door, went downstairs, sent the housemaid out to fetch a hansom. Everyone had lots of servants in those days, and looked into the drawing room. There, as he expected, he found Aunt Letty. She was busily mending a mattress. It lay on the floor near the window, and she was kneeling on it. "Ah, Letita, my dear," said Uncle Andrew, "I have to go out. Just lend me £5 or so. There's a good Joe." Joe was the way he pronounced girl. "No, Andrew, dear," said Letty in her firm, quiet voice without looking up from her work. "I've told you times without number that I will not lend you money." "Now, pray, don't be troublesome, my dear gal," said Uncle Andrew. "It's most important. You will put me in a deucedly awkward position if you don't." "Andrew," said Aunt Letty, looking at him straight in the face, "I wonder you are not ashamed to ask me for money." There was a long, dull story of a grown-up kind behind those words. All you need to know about it is that Uncle Andrew, with the managing dear Letty's business matters for her, and never doing any work, and running up large bills for brandy and cigars, which Aunt Letty had paid again and again, had made her a good deal poorer than she had been 30 years ago. "My dear gal," said Uncle Andrew, "you don't understand. I shall have some quite unexpected expenses today. I'll have to do a little entertaining. Come now, don't be tiresome." "And who, pray, are you going to entertain, Andrew?" asked Aunt Letty. A distinguished visitor has just arrived." "Distinguished? Fiddlestick," said Aunt Letty. "There hasn't been a ring at the bell for the last hour." At that moment, the door was suddenly flung open. Aunt Letty looked round and saw with amazement that an enormous woman, splendidly dressed, with bare arms and flashing eyes, stood in the doorway. It was the witch. I'm tired. I don't know where my bookmark is. Found it. Okay, so the next chapter is going to be chapter 7, What Happened at the Front Door. This is art. I don't know if I'll make another video today or not. But yeah. See you next time. Bye.